and we're going to Who Does World's Mumbo Jumbo for mid-Feb, I think it is. Something like that. We vagaries at the best of times with these things. So number one, apologies. Things have been delayed. Entirely down to me. So the episode should have dropped recently, which was very delayed, and then this one should have dropped not so late after the one. This is all going to happen in the future, so I hope I don't let myself down on this later. Big reason is I kind of went down a Destiny 2 rabbit hole. Destiny 2 is the Bungie Games online first-person shooter. To condense the tale down, on a Thursday night, usually us, the Sunday crowd of Tony, Jamie, me and Robbie, have an online virtual thing. It's kind of carried over from COVID. And we play some online games. We've done a bunch of stuff. A lot of Hearthstone often gets played at Battlegrounds, but we've dilly-dallied with Fall Guys and other things. We've been most recently into Fortnite, which I used to enjoy. Fortnite, I'm quite good at it. And it's all right. You can kind of detach yourself from it. It's not terrible. It's, as those shooters, it's fine. And we were looking for maybe something else to do instead. Ideally, I didn't really want to cost us a lot of money, if at all. And I quite enjoy the FPS shooter thing, although I dilly-dally with the likes of World of Warcraft and things like that, but that comes with a subscription. And I recently reactivated my subscription a little while ago, and then really didn't have the time to play it and invested it and kind of went, and just kind of abandoned it. So anyway, all long story short, so Destiny did look like it ticked a lot of those boxes because it's got that World of Warcraft-ish big world feel to it, but it's got the first-person shooter, it's got dungeons and stuff. I liked all what it kind of did. So I have delved deeply into that rabbit hole. I will say, as someone, I played Destiny, but not really Destiny 2, I don't think. It has a massively steep learning curve. There's no hand-holding. I know we're about 5 or 6 expansions into Destiny 2, so I've not played much of any of them at all. And it really doesn't help you when you first start playing. It's just like you're in the middle of it, and there's fucking shit going on everywhere, and you really are struggling to catch up. Having now invested a good few hours into it over the last week or so, I kind of feel like I kind of grok a lot of what it's doing. And I've been quite enjoying it. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be embraced by the others, because, well, Robbie's been on, so we had a whole fucking evening of just trying to jump in Destiny 2. If you've played Destiny 2, you'll know what I'm on about. There's a whole level at one point where you actually have to jump. And it's a jump that you should know, but you've not had really cause to do it, a double tap jump. And me and Robbie spent about an hour on this because I could not get my brain and fingers to do the thing until eventually it just kind of clicked. I went, it's a Eureka moment, and it all fell together. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So we did a lot of that. Robbie might stay around with it. I'm not sure about Jamie. We played on Thursday night, and he came away just because he hadn't done his homework, investing into it like, oh my fuck, there's too much going on. I think once you get past the pain barrier of a good few hours into it, really kind of enjoying what it's doing. The dog is barking, the baby monitor's on, and we're going to hear that for the rest of this video. So what I'm going to do, take a short break, as it were, and turn the fucking monitor off. Honestly. Right. Sorted. Apologies for the dog. I could have let him out here, but he's currently a fucking nightmare. If I let him out here, there's the neighbour over the way has decided to do a construction site and diggers and things, and the dog goes nuts. It's a long story. He's a pain in the ass. Anyway, so there we go. That's a rambling thing. So the end result of all that is essentially I've been playing Destiny 2 and not editing it and putting out videos. That's becoming clean. Oops. And I've resisted the urge. I came out of war to do this video and then hopefully finish editing and put up the other one. So with all of that nonsense and preamble out of the way, cup of tea, thank you very much, let us have a think about what I've been playing, or even talk about it. Let's talk about what I've been playing. I will do the talking, you do the listening. Thank you. So Frosthaven has continued to be being played. We've gone further down into Quest Chain. I'm not really going to pause too much on that this video. I did promise that I will at some point do a bit on the organisation of Frosthaven and how it works. I will do it. I think the next video I will do a thing I may even do a separate video about Frosthaven and about how I organise it and how I use the apps to work with it and all those bits and pieces. Not so much the playing the game, just the accoutrements around it. But that, I think, we'll touch there and leave it there. It is still enjoyable. We are very much enjoying it. I like the quest chains doing. We've played now, 4 or 5 weeks of it. I foresee that we're going to at least play a few more before we really kind of just dig into the bones of it and start leveling characters and things, which is just starting to happen. It's where the kind of sweet spot starts to sing. So there we go. That's what's going on with that. Instead, let's have a look at some stuff we played at Ben's. So I've played a couple of games of this now. We played this this is how bad I'm delayed, is that this game I've now played 2 weeks running, and I'm able to report on both plays now. Unless I mentioned it in the other video that I've yet to finish editing, in which case I'm an idiot. Escape Plan, Vita Lacerda's Escape Plan. Ben did back the big Vita Lacerda Kickstarter, which had Weather Machine, Escape Plan, Venus, Kanban, and On Mars. I think all of it, and he got all of that, because, you know, if you're going to. So we've played On Mars. Enjoyable. I quite enjoyed kind of what it was doing. The Inner 2 graphic design is very nice. We played Venus. Did we play Venus? No, I don't think we did play that. But we have played something else, I want to say. Anyway, Escape Plan is another one of them we're digging into. Supposedly the easier entry of it. I like the theme of it. The idea is that you are essentially kind of bank robbers. You're kind of, what's happening is the net is closing in on you, and you're trying to leave a city and get as much as your money that you've invested in the city and stashed away and get out within 3 days. That's essentially what you're doing, and it's done with this map that is slowly built over the game. So it's random every time you play, with different safe houses and different properties on it that you have to visit. And at the start of the game, hidden information is you all have these safe houses and these businesses fronts that have different denominations of money that different properties relate to, where you can go to, can either get cash out of it, just cash money that you use in the game as you play, or you take your stake, your savings, your ill-gotten gains, and there'll be differing values. Each of the property types will have over 150 mils worth of money in them, but split in different dominations. So some might have 150 in the other, or it might be split differently. So the idea of the game is you're going to these properties, you're trying to evade police that's spreading over the city. You get notoriety, builds up as you do naughty things. You get cards you can gain in your thing that give you one-off abilities. Very On Mars-ish in that capacity, in that you have like main actions, which is move or sleep, and then all the extra accoutrements, all the extra abilities and powers you gain and build as you buy cards or pick cards up or get other stuff or get equipment that you can use to get around the city. Basically, the idea is you move around. When you move into a square, fine, or a hex is fine, but when you move out of a hex, any police in that hex, and they come in 3 different types of SWAT teams, there's blues and reds, they do different things, but essentially each of the blue, red and black of the officers will hit you automatically as you leave. You can get equipment that allows you to defend against those certain colours, or you can get the extra cards that allow you to move them or get rid of them or do other stuff. So there's various ways of mitigating all that. You get gangs to join you and you can use them to do it, yada, 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 yada. But the basic idea of the game is you're going around, but you're trying to obviously get to all these properties, the ones with the highest value money, tick them, and then on day 3 of the game, or whatever it is, the final exit opens up, and there's 3 exits in the game, and you don't know until by the 3rd day usually what one is actually the way out. And that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot going on. It is clearly a Vita Lacerda game. There is a lot of moving parts to it, but in a nutshell, essentially that's what you're doing. You're going to thing, getting your money, you're trying to collect as much as the most value of that, get out on the last day, and the person who's collected the most cash at the end will win. That's it. And but yeah, day deep, lots going on. We didn't muck it up as such. I think we played 4 players the first time. We played 5 players last night. I quite enjoy it. I think it's fun. I did okay in the first game. I got out, but not with enough cash. Last night's game, I actually got out and won with the amount I'd got. But there's a lot of different tactics and strategies, as you would imagine in this, how you get income on what you do, and you can get extra moves by doing other stuff. I mean, I'm not going to do a deep dive into it. My initial thoughts were it kind of felt like a really great theme, but maybe I wasn't convinced the game was as fun as the theme. Second play, it meshes a lot better. And I quite enjoy what it's doing. It is heavy, it is a Euro, it is quite thematic, it does work really well. I quite like the theme, works really well with it. It doesn't feel lip service, it works. You get what's going on. And there is a subtle bit of take that you can do to people by moving the police around and blocking them off. There's some cock moves you can make in there. And on the whole, it's pretty good fun. So that's Escape Plan for Vita Lacerda. If you're fan of the heavier Euros, you like the theme of it, I think so far of the games, the Lacerda games I've played, I've enjoyed it the most, and I like what it's doing, and all kind of the mechanisms work really purr along quite nicely, and it all kind of complements the theme, and it's pretty good, pretty solid. I've heard some good things about it, and I do agree. I like it. I prefer it to On Mars currently at the moment in time. It just is a bit more intuitive, and the theme just feels a bit more solid. I think we're going to do Kanban next, which is one Bob's been champing at the bit since back in the days when it was published by I can't remember the name of the company, Stronghold, and this is the latest version of it, the car manufacturing plant. But they place 4, so we need a night when it's 4 of us. So yeah, Escape Plan for Lacerda, I'd give it a thumbs up, to be honest with you. I wouldn't rush out and buy it, but if you're in the market for that style of game, the idea of bank robbery type stuff, of running away with money and a heavy-ish euro, then does tick a lot of boxes. And I would like to play it again. I'm left kind of going, I'm not left going, oh, I've got options, but it definitely is one that I'm enjoyed the experience of. I've tried a different way of playing it last night. I'd like to play it again to try another way of doing it. There seems to be a lot of areas to prod and paw and tweak at. So it was good. Off the back of that, we also played, last week was Rolling Realms, which is from Stonewall Games, which I've saw it was out. It's essentially, it's a roll and write. And it's based on all these different games. You can buy extra expansion packs for this, I believe. Ben had picked it up, I think, on Amazon for like 12 quid. So it seemed a no-brainer. Basic idea of the game is it's played over, I think, 3 rounds. You draw some cards. You end up with cards that relate to different Stonewall games. And on each of these cards, it will have different rules that you can manipulate stuff with the dice you roll. So there might be a tapestry one, there might be a scythe one, and they kind of thematically kind of tie into those games. And you do stuff and then you cross off stuff, either on the cards or on whatever you're doing. So that's it. That's how it works. We played it after we played Escape Plan last week. So we give it another blast. I'll be honest with you, God almighty, considering it is basically dice and a couple of cards, and you're rolling dice and doing stuff on the cards, it was ridiculous levels of complexity, it felt like. I think everyone was probably phased after that. But it just, so much just explaining, discussion, going, and then doing it. It felt like something that should be easy. You roll dice and have fun doing the thing. And this is always my takeaway with a lot of roll and writes, is the idea, concept seems quite good. I'm going to roll some dice and I'll colour some boxes in. But when it comes to reality of these things, often they're a pain in the arse, because you're rolling dice and then you have to do fucking mental gymnastics and scribble stuff rather than there's no fun. You're just like, oh, fuck. And this feels very much like that. It was, I enjoyed-ish what it was doing, but it was just painful. I mean, granted, we have Bob playing, so Bob never listens to what's going on anyway at the best of times. But yeah, even so, with that aside, it was just everything you're going to have to explain everything, and then you're trying to, do I understand? Okay, and then you do it, and then you kind of grok it, and then you play it, and then you pull another card, and you go for that pain barrier every time. I'm sure if you played it a dozen times, then it would be a lot easier. You'd obviously, that pain barrier has gone away. But there wasn't enough there that made me go, oh, quite like to see some more of what that's doing and get some more cards in. I just kind of left going, yeah, okay, yeah, move on. So there you go. That's Rolling Realms from Stonewall Games. Another interesting one we played just one, actually, a couple of times as well, which is the word guessing game. Very good fun, excellent as a end of game or opening. It's good fun. It's light, easy, breezy. There's nothing more than that. I don't mind it. Century Spice Road is something we played. So Jamie, we played this we've played this a lot. I've played this since it came out many times, and we've always threatened to play the combination of all of them. We've never yet done it, but anyway, Spice Road is always one that comes out very often because it's real easy, quick play and fast play on the table. Jamie messaged on the WhatsApp team group the other day saying, we've been playing it wrong all this time. I'm like, huh? So the basic gist is he's saying we played wrong, and we had been playing it wrong. Is during the game you now I'm not going to be able to find the fucking cards, am I? If you've not played it, the idea of the game is you're trying to basically score points, these point cards, by collecting the cubes underneath that match them, and you're doing that by generating an engine that is done from a variety of cards like this, where it will usually be use these many cubes and get these cubes, or it will be spend these many cubes and get these cubes. And you build a deck of these up as they come out of the game from a tableau, and you buy them into your hand, and you try and build an engine between all these cards that allows you to get to the optimum of the stuff you want to score on. That's it, basically. So there is a finite amount of cubes you can hold in front of you during the game. I want to say it's 8. I don't know. I'm going to say 8. You can have in front of you. Any more than that, you lose. And we've been playing it for many, many times. As you build the cards, you get there and you play a card. So I would trade a red cube to get 3 yellows. I do that as my action and move on. What Jamie pointed out in the rule book, and he's correct, and what we hadn't been doing, or I did think we did, and at the time I was like, I don't know if it would make that much difference, is that actually you can do this action as many times as you want if you've got the cubes and the space to do it. And that kind of changed things quite a lot. I used it a lot last time we played it, actually, and won, whereas normally Tony's winning the game fairly regularly. But suddenly that opened up my eyes to a whole different way of doing things with this. And that you could really build some very cool little complex sort of easy jumps through. And it's just made that all mean do different stuff. So it's even better. I really enjoyed Century Spice World. I like all of them. Spice World, as I know it's been said, it's like Splendor, and I haven't played Splendor for a long time, but I get what people are saying. I think it's a really solid game as a real quick engine builder fun, and it really just is easy to teach, and you really could teach it to anyone, and a lot of fun to have with that. My only critique always with this was it's kind of overproduced. It could be cheaper without having all the pots and things and metal coins and stuff, which is nice, but it could have been cheaply done and be like a real mass market option. And if you're going to get any one of the 3 of them, I think actually for entry level and something you can play really easy, quick with people, Spice World is really good. I do like the second one, even the third. They're all good, but I like that one. That one comes up the most to the table. So there you go. We've not played that right since forever, I don't believe. So how many games have you discovered that you've been playing it wrong for months or years? That was one for us. There you go. Let's do some news. Why not? Here is the news. Big news, kind of shitty news, I guess, especially for Holy Grail Games. Holy Grail Games have filed for bankruptcy. It came out kind of last week now, actually. They had about 3 or 4 Kickstarter projects, I think, either in the state of being put out. I don't know if they were funding anything at the moment, but there was a bunch they completed. There was the Rallyman Dominations, Copan, I think they all were kind of varying levels of being dished out, distributed, or in production. What appears to have occurred in a nutshell is that old tale of, I think, the combination of COVID, the shipping price crisis, and a bunch of other shit to deal with their distributor, the guys who were the shipping company they were dealing with, whose name I think was Belors, I want to say Belor were dealing with, kind of is like a perfect storm of a shit show. They had a bunch of projects going on, as we know. Obviously the shipping cost fiasco and everything else was issued. They apparently had run into issues with Belor potting out one of their other projects, and then they basically stopped the dishing them out because there was, I think it was Rallyman was one they were in the middle of. They were fucking that up as well. Then Belor turned around and said, we want all this extra money or we're not going to finish doing this for you. And shit happened. They went to the bank and said, we need this money, can we get it? And the bank went, no. And that was pretty much the story of that. And they pretty much shut the company down. They said, we're bankrupt, we're done. It's left any backers of a lot of their project. I mean, I think Rallyman was being dispatched as we speak, and in fact Tony, who's been very luckily dodged a bullet on this one, has his copy of Rallyman Dirt. He had that a couple of weeks ago. We were going to play it, I haven't yet, but I know they were only halfway through fulfillment of that, so I don't know what happens to those people. Copan didn't even reach fulfillment. I don't even think that was produced at that point, and I'm not sure about Dominations, and they did Museum. End result, it's a shit show. I mean, there's a lot of people here out of pocket by more than a few quid by the sounds of it, and I'm not entirely sure if people are actually going to get their stuff. Holy Grail, was screwed back against the wall. There was no really way out of that, and I think it's the problem of the small publishers, especially when you overstretch yourself, which is probably what happened here, and then an unforeseen worldwide cataclysmic fuck up happens. Sometimes the walk that off is tricky. I don't think this is the last we'll see of this. I think others, I know Mythic Games, I think is one that definitely seems to be on the ropes at the moment, and there's going to probably be more. And one reason almost where I have stepped back from Kickstarter is a little bit of the concern of this sort of stuff. The prices of stuff at the moment is crazy expensive. B, I haven't got any money, and C, the shipping prices are nuts as well. and it would have to be something pretty magical to get me off the fence. And so far, nothing has done that. But there, yeah. So yeah, it's shit. And I feel bad for the guys at Holy Grail. I feel terrible for the guys who've paid money and now probably aren't going to get their stuff. So yeah, how this way it plays out, not really sure, but I suspect that someone will come in and buy all the bankrupted stock, and it will probably go to market cheap-ish, and the people who've paid for all that stuff probably won't see it. It's likely to be what happens, which is very similar to what we discussed last video with ITB Games and their fucking shit show. Although, to be fair, Holy Grail have been very honourable and done what they can in this. ITB is definitely more of a shit show. But there you go. So that's the big probably news, and there may well be more to come. Other more no lighter at all. The Restoration Games have also announced something this week. So they've said that they are vaulting a couple of the unmatched expansions or games. So Cobble and Fog and Robin Hood and Bigfoot are being vaulted, i.e. when they run out of print, they're not reprinting them. Cobble and Fog, I believe, is supposed to be actually a really good starter set, and it's one I came close more than once picking up, and I'd seen it reasonably priced a little while ago, about 6 months back. I'd seen it cheap, and I now regret maybe not picking that up, but hey, you know, what are you going to do? I've got enough games, and it was the only reason I didn't pick it up was like, well, if I really enjoy this, then it's another rabbit hole to go down. However, if you're on the fence and you're like, then it's not going to be printed anytime soon by the sounds of it. Chances are a lot of people already bought it up on the word of this, so I'm a bit late to the party on this. But if you're just hearing this now and you really wanted to get them, now would be the time to do that before you get fleeced. And parallel to that, I would also say Bloody Inn, the guys behind that, Asmodee have dropped them. I don't think, I meant to mention it, I didn't. So Bloody Inn is also disappearing the way of the Dodo. And I've ummed and ahed again. I've had a crisis of thought, should I pick the expansion up whilst it's available, because it may not be. I've ummed and ahed, I still haven't done it. I don't have to do, but Bloody Inn is a really good fun game, though I need to get to the table more myself. It's another one that will be disappearing if you were in any way tantalised by the prospect of getting that. So there's that. But they have announced a digital version of Unmatched is coming, I think like the end of the month, if not now, where it will slowly roll out all the expansions onto it, so you can possibly play it there, and that might be an option I think I might look at, as it's going to be cheaper to buy in the physical games, but maybe get a feel for it, especially if there's a free version. It would be really good just to get a feel. But I may potentially, maybe, possibly look at that. It might be something we could do on a Thursday night. So there's that. And back in my brain, I had something else plug into it then that I was like, I could mention that as well. And then the speed of which that entered my brain, it is issued forth out of it again, and I'm none the wiser. So that moment's gone, whatever that was I was going to say. I may well go, in a minute, and tell you what it was when it comes back to me. Not at the moment, though. Dungeons Degenerates is on Kickstarter again, and the 5th printing of it. I don't do a lot of big pushes for Kickstarter. I haven't done for a long time, and I couldn't in all honesty say you need to go and do it, and even in this is not what you need to do. It is a cracking game. It's a deranged thing. I did a review a little while ago of it. It's off the bug nuts in chain, kind of this weird, furious, very Freak Brothers aesthetic with deviant dungeon behaviour, and just that this kind of Monty Python-ish kind of rude sense of humour to it, and sausages and things. It is very much a certain aesthetic taste of certain people. If you look at it, it's very psychedelic, the funky. I love the art and design and the thing of it. It's just different, and the game is overcomplicated. It is like a retro callback to the 80s style of those type of board games. There was lots of stuff happening, but it's also a richly thematically fucked up world you can play in, and I like a lot of what it's doing. It's hard to get hold of. Whenever it comes out, it's really hard to go. And I got it, I think, on the 3rd Kickstarter printing, and one of the guys on the Facebook groups did a group buy, and I managed to get it and the Mean Streaks expansion at a very reasonable price off through the group buy we did. And I would suggest, if you can get that, do that. It is a good game. I don't think it's essential, but if you're in a big market for something of that big open world, sandboxy-ish, adventure-y board game thing that's going to go on all night and looks funky, weird, then this is one in its own sort of little thing. It's got personality, is what we're saying with it. The ridiculous price of all the shit on the Kickstarter, I mean, it's all in on it. It's utterly ridiculous. You don't need to do that. The base game alone is more than sufficient for anyone really who's casually playing. Unless you're going to play this thing to fucking death, the base game is fine. If you must, or you can get a good price on it, then pick up the Mean Streets expansion as well. And I would say that's all you need. I have not felt wanting for not having anything else. And to be fair to you, I haven't managed to get it to the table properly for a long time. But it is one I really enjoy. So I would caveat everything with, you know, are you going to play it? It will come back around again because it's had 2 printings since I think I picked it up. If you're going to get it, probably get it on the Kickstarter because it seems a better price. Post Kickstarter, it's normally this stuff sells really expensive. And buying it from the States normally is also really expensive. So if you want it and it's been on your thing, then this is probably the best time to jump on it to get it, because you rarely see these come up for second-hand sales, not very often, and if they do, they're usually expensive. So there you go, Dungeons & Generous. I purely recommend it because it's artistically different and cool and funky and weird, and that's all in my wheelhouse, but you don't need it. But if you got the spare cash and you really fancy it, there's a tip. Right, there we go. And I think that's it. And the thing I was trying desperately to think about has not come back, so we'll move on with our life. So what else have I been up to? Well, I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2, as we've covered. I've been off the last few days with Little Man because it's half term, so I've been having a couple of late nights watching the movies. We're still watching The Last of Us, which is still solid stuff, really good. It's not really had any bum notes yet. It's pretty fucking well done. But aside from that, what I've been watching, I've been going on a bit of a revenge-o-matic, grindhousey exploitation movie kick of late. So I watched Straw Dogs the other night, Sam Peckinpah's original Straw Dogs, which I haven't seen for a little while, actually. I've seen it a good few times. I've ever seen it at the big screen in Portsmouth when they used to show cult movies late night in the Odeon, which is no longer there, sadly. But I used to love going on to the midnight screenings of all these kind of cult and grindhouse type stuff they used to show regularly, actually, and the manager would always be at the front with a bow tie and tux. That's old guy with a little pencil thin moustache. Remember that whole thing. And I'd seen Star Wars there, and I'd seen all the Star Wars movies as a kid there, and yeah, all that reminiscence is gone. It's gone now. It's now like probably a building society. Anyway, Straw Dogs, I remember seeing there, and it's one that stuck with me. I'm a huge Peckinpah fan. Loves Peckinpah stuff. Not all of it, but Wild Bunch clearly stands as a thing, and he's one of the definitely modern purveyors of bloodshed, cinematic bloodshed, which John Woo kind of took the mantle off. All of it without Peckinpah would never exist. And when he was on his fire and doing the best, he was good. This is one it's a challenging movie, by all means. It's certainly not for the faint of heart, and it's still pretty fucking challenging now. Basic setup is Dustin Hoffman and Suzanne George, and she's stunning in this. And it's her first real big role. And Hoffman's really good as well, actually. In fact, it's all good. They go to Cornwall. He's recently married her. He's a mathematician. He's gone to Cornwall to her family's old house, and he's going to finish writing a book. She has obviously links to the area down here, the locals. She obviously had an old flame there, one of the guys who's the builders. They're going to come and build the garage for them while they're there, and it's this very slow burn, simmering tensions of shit is slowly building between them and the locals, and it's this kind of little Cornish village that kind of has been that way for hundreds of years, is kind of foreseen as, and they kind of have their own ways of dealing with you're not local, and they're very much League of Gentlemen-ish. And it escalates very slowly, and George is brilliant. She's kind of all over the place. It's just like almost childlike at some points, winding up Hoffman, and Hoffman's like cold. He's kind of abusive in his own way to her, and you read a lot. There's a lot to read and take out of the movie as you watch it again, and I picked up even more this subsequent viewing than I have before. The big challenging thing in the whole movie is 2/3 of the way in, there is a rape scene, a prolonged rape scene, where Suzanne George is being raped by her ex-boyfriend, essentially, and there was a point in that scene where it moves from being a rape to consensual, really, and it's subtly played, and it goes on, and a lot of people had an issue with that, and I can understand why. And it does make you think a lot of things, because it takes a rape and then it makes it kind of sexy, which you're kind of like, oh, what the fuck is going on here? And then it makes an even further, deeper, darker turn, which I won't spoil, at that point, which leads eventually, inevitably, to this siege at the farmhouse where Hoffman, the everyman, nebbish little nerd, has pushed to breaking point, and he violently takes on these locals in a very violent Sam Peckinpah ending where there is bloodshed. Lots of bloodshed and lots of shit. Yeah, but it's very... there's a lot of ambiguities in it, and there's even more as you watch it towards the end. There's a lot of ambiguities in it, and Hoffman plays quite a fucking fucked up character, and how he treats Liz and George for it is like very fascinating. So I really enjoyed watching that. Enjoyed's the correct word. If you've never seen Straw Dogs, it is one of Peckinpah's best, but be warned, it does go places. They did remake it in the 2015-ish with a pretty good cast, but it just lacked all the subtlety and nuance of this movie, very much so. Didn't really change much. They didn't actually. No, it was not as good. It was terrible. Anyway, and hence I've seen it, but I can't remember anything about it. But this, yes, height of 70s thing. So I watched that, and then last night I watched Rolling Thunder, which is another firm favourite of mine for many years. It never really got the appeal over here in the UK. It's got Tommy Lee Jones on it, William Devane in it. It's also got James Best, who was Roscoe Pete Coltrane in The Dukes of Hazzard, playing a fucked up baddie in it. Basically, just this is William Devane and Tommy Lee Jones come back from Vietnam. They've been held prisoner for 7 years by the Viet Cong and tortured and all sorts of shit. And they come back to their loving families. And of course, everything's fucked up. The loving families aren't there ready for them. They can't really, they're PTSD'd and they can't deal with it. This being a roaring rampage, revenge-o-matic, though, there is a twist in it. Essentially, Colonel Rain, who's the character in the main character's game, he gets given thousands of dollars worth of silver dollars for every day he was incarcerated. And the baddies, the Akuna boys, find out about this. They come around and one day during the day and attack him and murder his family, fuck him up. They pull his hand down a waste disposal unit and chew it off. So he ends up with a hook for the rest of the movie. And then it's basically this slow burn, well, not even a slow burn, it's Paul Schrader, may I also say, just for the record, whereupon he goes and hunts them down and mercilessly murders them all with his mate Tommy Lee Jones, is essentially the nub of it. But it's got some really good moments in it. It doesn't hang around. It's gritty, it's bloodthirsty, it's violent. It's got James Best as a baddie in a small role, and it's pretty good, actually. And for the grindhousey sort of revenge-o-matic type shit, it does the job very well. More so, I think I prefer it to Taxi Driver, because it does all the shit it should do. I really enjoyed watching that again. It's got really good. There's an actress, I can't think of her name, it's got blank on it, which plays a barmaid type character who's really good in it, and she just doesn't appear in any other movies that, as far as I'm aware. William Devane, to be fair, doesn't really become this big leading man, but Tommy Lee Jones is great as well. Very good, very recommended. It's always hard to get hold of. I think recently it's been reissued over here by Final Cut. I think it put it out on a Blu-ray for about 12 quid, which is not a bad price. It's not the best print in the world. It's definitely watchable. It's good sound quality, and it's good gritty print, actually. It's got a nice bit of grime to it. Highly recommended if you're in the ballpark for any of that sort of shit. And there you go. And that's it. I think that will do us. I need to finish editing that one video, and then I need to edit this video, and I need to get them all out. And Charlie's sending me some actual play podcasts, his video eyes, so we'll also have them to roll out and sort out. So plenty to do. And plus I need to fill my video game fixation as well. Of course, my addiction. That needs to constantly be fed, so I need to kind of balance that with that as well. There we go. There we are. Look after yourselves. Have a lovely week. I imagine at this point we'll be back in March, as we're now towards the end of Feb, well, midway through Feb. And Feb is a short month, and let's be honest, I still need to get this video edited, get the other one out. Maybe I might just catch one more at the end of Feb, but if not, we will see you in March. Enjoy the videos when they eventually do hit, and all that. Stay safe out there, have fun, play games, blah blah blah, and we will be back soon for more of the same, if I can control myself sooner as well. Ta-da!